Well, it has finally happened, and James Gunn has announced his DCU slate for what we'll call Chapter 1. Let's take a couple minutes to dive into the 10 projects James Gunn announced, some huge surprises, and what we have in store for us coming over the next couple of years. Well, ever since James Gunn and Peter Safran took over the DCU, we've been wondering what direction they're headed, and we finally got a massive update with 10 projects coming our way either on TV or on the big screen. Now, it's pretty clear there's a lot of changes afoot, and Gunn is not wasting any time. So let's dive into these 10 projects, what's going on, and get a little bit of detail about each one of them. We're going to do full breakdown videos for each project over the next week, so stay tuned for that. Now, before we dive into the new projects, let's talk a second about The Batman Part 2, which will indeed continue on its own path and will be set to release on October the 3rd, 2025. It's now confirmed that Matt Reeves' world of the Batman will indeed carry on doing its own thing, but we do have some other Batman news, but we'll get to that in a second. Now, as far as James Gunn's new slate goes, there's 10 new projects, so we are just going to take it from the top. The first project release will be an animated TV series called Creature Commandos, and will be based on the comic of the same name that basically brought vampires, werewolves, and zombies to life in the DC universe. Now, Gunn did reveal it's already in production, and quote, animation will lead into live action and will lead back into animation again, noting that any project that gets an animated series could also get live action versions and vice versa. They also confirmed that Weasel from the first Suicide Squad movie, played by his brother Sean Gunn, as well as Rick Flag Sr. will be part of this project, and that the castings for the live action characters will also voice the animation, keeping some nice continuity. Now, the second project is something we've heard a little bit about already, and that would be the Amanda Waller TV series. Now, Gunn said, and I quote, "Some of the characters we're doing were changing out. This is a multiverse. Some of the characters we're using, the same actors. Viola is still playing Waller, and she has Team Peacemaker with her." He did reveal that this series will fall between the first and second season of Peacemaker, and since he's been busy writing Creature Commandos, this project, and Superman, Peacemaker Season 2 will see a bit of a delay, which I found pretty interesting. Now, this is where Gunn starts to kick off the big projects, and starting it off right with Superman Legacy. During the presentation, Peter Safran actually said that this is really the start of the DCU. It's currently being written by James, and I sincerely hope that he can be persuaded perhaps to direct as well. This is not an origin story. It focuses on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. He is the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. He is kindness in a world that thinks of kindness as old-fashioned. They also revealed the release date for this project will be July the 11th, 2025. So about a 2.5-year wait before the Man of Steel comes to life on the big screen. Now, next up is Green Lantern, and once again, this is that HBO TV series we've been hearing a lot. In the presentation, they did reveal that this will be in the vein of True Detectives, and Safran said that it's terrestrial based. I've got two of our favorite Green Lanterns, Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, starring in a True Detective type mystery, and it plays a really big role leading into a main story that we're telling across our films and television. This should make fans pretty excited. Traditional fans really wanted Hal Jordan, but a lot of people were pretty happy about Jon Stewart showing up, so I think this is an absolute win. Next up is The Authority, and this is based on the Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch comics. Now, in the presentation, they talked a little bit about how this is going to work, and I quote, "One of the things with the DCU is it isn't just a story of heroes and villains, and not every movie and TV show is going to be about good guys versus bad guys. Giant thing from the sky comes and good guy wins. There are black hats, white hats, and gray hats. There are people that are anti-heroes, and there are people that are very questionable, like the Authority, who basically believe you can't fix the world in an easy manner, and they sort of take things into their own hands." Now, if you've read the comics, this sounds pretty perfect, and I think the big takeaway here is Wildstorm Comics coming to the DCU on the big screen, meaning lots of new possibilities have opened up. Now, this next one completely caught me off guard, and I have to say it sounds pretty cool, and that would be Paradise Lost. Well, I've been waiting up for some news about Wonder Woman 3, but it appears in the meantime, Gunn and Safran are going to take us to the home of the Amazons and give us what's being called a Game of Thrones-esque story about Paradise Island. It's being described as a drama with political intrigue behind the society of all women. Now, we do know the series will take place before Diana's birth and explore the origin of the island and what Gunn is calling the beautiful and ugly truths about the history of the island. That sounds pretty great. Now, next up is one that has fans buzzing and something that leaked a little bit yesterday, and that's The Brave and the Bold. Now, The Brave and the Bold will introduce the DCU's Batman and Bat family, and they made it clear it does exist separate from the Robert Pattinson Batman in the Matt Reeves movies. Now, Gunn said that this will introduce the DCU Batman, and he made it pretty clear this is Bruce Wayne, but it'll also add his favorite Robin, Damian Wayne. Now, the most recent Batman and Robin series saw Dick Grayson take up the mantle, but as it seems right now, we're going to stick with traditional Bruce Wayne and give us the father-son story that has worked in a lot of other mediums, including animation. It does make me curious about previous Robins like Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, and Tim Drake, and whether they exist in this established world. We're going to have to wait and see, but that's pretty exciting. Now, another TV series that they did reveal was Booster Gold. And they really didn't give a lot of details about this, but this is something people have suggested would be a great role for Chris Pratt. It's described as about a loser from the future who uses future tech to come back to today and pretend to be a superhero. Gunn referred to it as someone with imposter syndrome as a superhero, which if you read the comics and understand Booster, this fits pretty good. It does raise the questions about Ted Kord and the Blue Beetle next year and whether Kord will be integrated into that because their relationship is somewhat at the core of DC Comics. The next movie I wasn't expecting at all, and that was Supergirl, Women of Tomorrow. Apparently, this will be based on the Tom King comic series, and this Supergirl movie, they're saying, will introduce a very different type of character than many audiences are expecting. Now, Gunn had some very interesting things to say about this, because he said, and I quote, "In our DCU, we see the difference between Superman, who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents from the time he was an infant, versus Supergirl, who was raised on a rock chip off of Krypton, and watched everyone around her die and be killed in terrible ways for the first 14 years of her life." I haven't actually read the Tom King series. I'm going to run out and grab it. I'll try to link it down below, but it does sound pretty cool to me, and I like the idea that Kara is distinctly different than Clark Kent. Now, the final one was something we were hoping for after the first season was canceled, and now it's set to return, and that would be a Swamp Thing movie. Now, if you're a fan of Gunn, this really shouldn't surprise you because this is right up his alley, but you do have to wonder where this is leading inside the DCU. They made it pretty clear it was going to be part of the greater story, but Safran also said they're all not going to be tonally the same, allowing different filmmakers to bring their aesthetic to the movie, meaning we could very much get a James Wan horror film, very much in the vein of the Swamp Thing series we got a couple of years ago. According to the release, the film will investigate the dark origins of the Swamp Thing, and hopefully will be the first of several pieces setting up a Justice League Dark project that could come down the road. Now, if a project was announced or existing from DC and you didn't hear about it here, at this point, I might consider it shelved. Gunn seems to have a pretty comprehensive plan, and I think if you're expecting one of those other projects we were waiting on, like maybe Static or the rumored Nightwing movie, you should probably shelve those ideas for now until we get the next phase of announcements. Now, I have to say, all these projects totally blew me away, and there were lots of unexpected details in here that we're going to break down in continuing videos going over the next week. Keep your eyes peeled because we want to talk about each project specifically, what I think is going to go down, and the source material that they referenced in the presentation. I think it's pretty great that Gunn finally has put this plan out there. It was way bigger than 3 or 4 entries that many of us were expecting, and I think it gives us a taste and some major hype for what's to come in the DCU. I think the timing here is perfect, and I can't wait to get our first little nibbles. That would be the currently in production Creature Commandos from DC Studios.